Bret Knits Through Alaska, Part 1. The Mendenhall Glacier and the Eagle Congress. Chapter 1. First Steps in the Last Frontier. When I used to think about Alaska, it was gigantic mountains, miles of coastline, breathtaking expanses, scenic rivers, and lots of snow. Not anymore. My change of mind came about during the 2 weeks I spent in the company of a native Alaskan. I hadn't thought in terms of the contributions and ingenuity that the inhabitants of this unforgiving country had developed over unmeasured time. I didn't know I could be drawn into the basic structures of everyday life. The adventure started upon arriving in Juneau, a bustling but small city. Understand, I had just stepped off the plane coming from Chicago O'Hare Airport, the hub of millions. The trip had been long, but my expectations were already filled by the scale of the scenery. Entering into the Juneau arrivals area, Bret waved to a woman with his name on a sign. "Welcome to Alaska," a cheery voice reached out to him. "I'm Sulu, your guide." Travel plans had been made in advance to accommodate my curious mind and to plan a routing that would take me away from city life to more basic activities, namely the handcrafts of the smaller communities. "Hello, and thank you for meeting me. I'm looking forward to a few days here." "Only a few? Your letter indicated 2 weeks." She looked disappointed. "But 2 weeks in this incredible state no doubt will go quickly," he said with a smile. "You won't be disappointed," she replied. Chapter 2. Ice and Awe at Mendenhall. "Where are we going?" Sulu handed over a proposed itinerary, as well as maps and information on Alaskan handcrafts. He noted immediately that there were a variety of different adventures, some with groups and some on their own. "Our first stop will be visiting the famous Mendenhall Glacier with a tour group. It's fairly near the airport, and we already have reservations for this afternoon." "Ever walked on a glacier before?" Bret paled. He was physically fit for a 33-year-old, but sitting daily at his desk as an accountant made him reluctant to pursuing active sports. He demurred, I'm not exactly dressed for the outdoors." "No problem," she continued, ignoring his reluctance. "They have everything you'll need. You'll be outfitted like a pro." Well, he thought, no escape from that. The 8-passenger van moved the excited travelers from the touring parking area through forests and mountains. "Look," one of the passengers pointed upward. "Mountain goats!" Cameras immediately appeared while the van slowed to a crawl. After several more miles, the van pulled into the main visitor parking area, and Bret caught his first view of the glacier. The face and lower tongue of the glacier was magnificent, especially with Mendenhall Lake in front of it, reflecting the distinctive blue-white ice. Arriving at what appeared to be trails upward, Bret and Sulu wrapped themselves in their parkas and set off to walk on the glacier. Chapter 3. The Road to the Village. "That was great!" Bret was enthusiastic now that they were safely back in Juneau, sipping a hot toddy at the Red Dog Saloon. "I can't get over how jaw-dropping the views were. I am so glad you encouraged me to continue on to Nugget Falls after I slipped and fell on my—" "Well, that was pretty embarrassing," Sulu laughed. "I wish it happened to me instead of you. I would have welcomed those good-looking guys who helped you up and made sure you were okay. They would be welcome to help me any day of the week," she added. "Actually, they are trained to help visitors. You're not the first one to slip on the ice." Their conversation returned once more to the planned itinerary as they watched the bar patrons of this famous establishment throw peanuts on the floor. "I'll be taking you to a small village next. There are artisans of basketry there, and we'll be spending a few days learning about it. If we're lucky, and they find us worthy, they may let us participate." "Us? Well, of course, didn't you realize? I am just as interested as you are in handcrafts. That's why the agency had me handle your tour." Chapter 4. The Basket Circle and the Knitters. Sulu was a very capable driver, Bret noted as she took a shallow creek, carefully rolling over boulders in the water. The road that deviated from the main highway was paved for the first quarter mile and then quickly dwindled to a wide rocky trail and occasionally wet one. "Are you sure this is the right road?" "Pretty sure. It's been a long time since I came this way. My parents used to bring the family here for potlatches." "Potlatches?" "Sure. We went to tribal gatherings. It's like a party, an event that brings people together. The celebrations are called potlatches." "Sounds great. Is there an event there now?" No, but I know some artisans live there year-round. One of the reasons it's so remote is that it is closer to where they get the materials for their crafting. What materials might that be? All I see are a lot of trees and no doubt a lot of animals hiding behind them. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. And he gestured around the car. Never mind. We are here and I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. Parking was outside of the populated area. It was a small community where discrete homes were spaced carefully, as if to respect the privacy of each family group. In the large center space stood a magnificent totem pole. It quietly stared back at their stunned reaction. Both Bret and Sulu stood still at the edge of the cleared area, taking in each of the carved parts. It has a life of its own, Bret commented softly as if to keep from any disturbance. It has many meanings and if you let it, it will speak to you. This was not the first time that Sulu had felt a strong connection to the essence of this pillar. Hello, greeted the voice of an elderly gentleman. He had the withered features of a man who had spent serious time in the outdoors. Suddenly he brightened. Sulu? Is that really you? I think it's been a long time. He paused and scrutinized Bret. And you've brought a friend. More of a question than a statement. Yes, uncle, she said politely. This is Bret. We were hoping to see if the basket makers were here. He smiled as if a joke had been made. And what will you do with the basket makers? Sulu pretended to give the question some serious thought before looking up from her bowed head and replied playfully, Learn. Chapter 5. Hands at work, hearts at peace. The circle of busy artisans only gave disinterested glances when Bret, Sulu, and Uncle Appet arrived. Their focus was on the managing of materials and creating artwork from what appeared to be common wood and grasses. But what was being fashioned seemed to be so much more than just basic materials. One man was chipping away at a large piece of soapstone. Another was making use of a hand drill on cedar that revealed the face of an old warrior. Hands and fingers basically manipulated reed, canes, and rushes, forming basketry with intricate design. This is it! The basket circle! Sulu exclaimed energetically to Bret. Then quieting her enthusiasm, she asked the elder of the group, May we join you? There was no reply, but the 5 basket makers moved their positions to accommodate the 2 visitors. I knew your mother, one of them said quietly as she made a gesture for Sulu to sit next to her. Another woman motioned to Bret as a place was made between herself and a middle-aged man. But just as he was about to be seated, something extraordinary caught his eye. He stood up straight and walked off toward the irresistible pull of his curiosity. Knitting! These people were knitting! Bret approached cautiously. He was on his own now. The question in his mind was that these women might be using factory-made materials for their craft. That didn't seem right when everything in this village seemed to be focused on local materials. But as he got closer, he couldn't believe his eyes. Sitting by the group nearly out of sight were not only more artisans, but there were well-organized sacks of materials. Cedar roots, grasses of various kinds, and what's this? Hair? No, it was fur, animal fur. A lot of it. I guess you never saw yarn being made, one of the knitters suggested, and they all giggled silently. She stepped forward with a drop spindle in hand, and to his surprise commenced spinning a length of natural yarn using materials almost directly from the nearby bags. That's amazing. Bret was dumbfounded to everyone's amusement. Here, another lady suggested, Would you like me to show you how to knit? My mother taught me years ago, but I'd love to try it with this yarn. Like I said before, it's amazing. Before long, Bret was pulled into the warm camaraderie of the group knitters. The scenery surrounding them was spectacular, the weather gorgeous. He commented out loud to no one in particular. This is the perfect sit and knit. Sure, if only Arnie and Carlos could be here, came a voice from the circle. Bret nearly dropped his needles. How did you know about Arnie and Carlos? They are pretty far away in Norway. Internet, another knitter replied. Knitting is enjoyed worldwide, and those guys are famous. Didn't you know? There was simply no answer to that. They all turned back to their work to sit and knit for a bit. Chapter 6. Wings to Haines. I'm impressed. Your project is really nice. Bret closely examined the construction of Sulu's little basket. Use of various colors and textures of reeds as well as nettle give it an intricate but graceful design. Beautiful, he concluded. And what about your knitting? Sulu challenged. Do I get to see what you accomplished? What did you learn? And where is it? So many questions. For 4 days, each of the travelers were so involved with their projects and had barely spoken. A great deal of effort was centered around the work at hand, and in the evening, community interactions and occasional guitar music set them up for a good nightly sleep. Bret was grateful for his adventure, showing his thanks to the Tlingit community by leaving his knitting piece with them. It was the 5th day, and Sulu announced that their departure would be that afternoon. Projects completed, friendships were made, and a better understanding of the pleasures and challenges of the village. The experience was extensive. So we're going to Haines, Alaska? Bret said quizzically, as they reached the main highway. Where's that? Look at your map. It's way up that channel north of Juneau. Bret examined the tourist map. You mean we have to drive all the way back to Juneau? That's another long drive. He looked slightly annoyed. No, Bret, she teased. There's a small airport just north of here. We'll be leaving my car and we'll fly to Haines. I think you'll love it. The 4-seater Cessna 172 made its effortless takeoff, and they were immediately immersed in the most beautiful scenery Bret had ever witnessed. I never knew that this would be, well, there are just no words that can describe this. I know the feeling, the pilot encouraged. I get that feeling every time I go up. The flight over the very deep Lynn Canal was too brief. This was Bret's thought when they landed at the Haines airport. A local taxi connected them to their car rental and they headed for Haines. Stop here, Bret nearly shouted when they pulled into town. The point of his outburst was a gift and souvenir shop that seemed to have every article he could imagine. His interest, however, zeroed in on a certain section of the store. Can I help you, sir? A smiling sales lady approached. This yarn, he gestured to the display. Is any of it made here? Well, no, except for the rough skeins in that basket. They are made near here. Those only come in one natural color. There are some variations, but that's the result of changes of weather and availability of materials. After his education in the past 5 days, Bret now knew exactly what he would make. He was familiar with the feel of this material and chose 4 balls of the heavy rope-like yarn. I'd like these, and I'll need knitting needles. I think a size 10 would be perfect. Better make that 2 pairs. Of course, she answered. She was surprised at the customer's confidence. May I ask what you'll be making with your purchase? A bag, and I hope to find a piece of walrus tusk to make a closure. And I'll need fabric to line the inside. Between Sulu and himself, the remaining material for completing the project were purchased along with a sewing kit, scissors, thread, and needles. All we need now is to find our hotel and get to work. We? Sulu asked. She knew what was coming and rolled her eyes. Of course, you can make one too. Dinner was in a warm, friendly restaurant that reflected the culture of the region. There were multiple decorations of early mining tools, fishing relics, wood carvings, and art. There, Bret and Sulu were treated like long, last-lost family. Haines was a small town that presented itself well. I can't wait to get started on my bag. Let's find a place tomorrow where we can sit and work on it. Both of us, that is. Sulu looked almost devilish. Sorry, Bret, but we have other plans. Bret's face fell a disappointment. What do you mean? He was crestfallen. This place is great. It's beautiful. The mountains, the Chilkoot, and the Chilkoot inlets were spectacular views. What could be better? Well, my pioneering friend, she said mischievously, hang on to your bootstraps because you're about to witness something you've never seen before. Chapter 7, Eagles and the River of Life. The road they traveled along the Chilkoot River took them through cedar forest, past rivers and waterways, while being watched over by snow-peaked mountains that looked so large the earth couldn't possibly support them. Bret had brought the bag of knitting supplies with the idea of starting his project while on the road. Not even one stitch was made. The scenery was too compelling, the anticipation of sighting wildlife too intense. Did you see it? Sulu said urgently as she slowed the car. See what? He countered. The bear. Look just to the right of that clump of trees. What he thought was part of a rock slide was indeed a small black bear. Wow, a real live bear. Sulu let out a great cackle when she veered off the main road onto. Again, one of Alaska's off-road trails over an old wooden bridge. She pulled the car to the side of the tumbling river. Cottonwood trees embraced the edge of the water. "This is a great place," Bret exclaimed as he started to get out of the car. "Don't open the door," Sulu commanded sharply. "Just watch." He focused to where she was pointing. The whole scene filled his eyes, and he understood. There, on practically every branch of every tree, were eagles. American bald eagles. And they weren't just perched in the trees, they were actively feeding. They surveyed the wash of the water over the boulders and soared over the salmon to scoop up their next meal. Their dinner table was in the rocks and trees. The salmon had already done their job to ensure future populations. Bret was entranced. "Now we can start on our knitted bags," Sulu assured him. "Now we can sit and knit and watch." "Now that was unreal," Bret sighed. "They say it's the largest congress of eagles in the world." "I believe it, and it's hard to fathom how they managed to subdue those huge salmon. They are great fishermen. Which leads me to ask, how do you like fishing?" Sulu was all smiles. Chapter 8, A Taste of Haines. The door swung open, and a rush of warmth followed, carrying the smell of frying fish, toasted buns, and something hearty and unmistakably homemade. Under it all was a hint of beer and wood. The Fog Cutter Bar and Grill clearly was a local favorite. The low murmur of conversation and the clinking of glasses created a welcoming hum, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of his journey so far. He slid onto a worn wooden stool at the bar, the scent of fried fish and hops hanging heavy and comforting in the air. He ordered a local amber ale, its crisp bitterness a welcome shock to his palate. "Bret Isakson, is that really you?" The voice, rough around the edges but undeniably familiar, cut through the din. Bret turned to see a man with a weathered face, a thick beard, and eyes that crinkled at the corners with a mixture of disbelief and delight. It took a moment for his mind to bridge the 2 decades that had passed, but then the recognition hit him like a rogue wave. "Jason? Jason Reynolds? What in the world are you doing in Haines?" Laughter erupted from Jason, a deep, hearty sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the bar. "I could ask you the same thing, man. I live here. Have for the last 15 years. They embraced, a clumsy, backslapping hug that spoke of shared histories and long-lost camaraderie. Another round of beers appeared as if by magic, and the years began to melt away with each sip. Jason, it turned out, was a fishing guide, a life that suited the rugged, adventurous boy Bret remembered from high school. He had a wife, 2 kids, and a life deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the Alaskan wilderness. "You and your friend hungry?" Jason asked, gesturing to the menu. "You got to try the halibut and chips. It's a local institution." After the appropriate introductions were made, Bret admitted, "I could eat." The long day of travel left him with a hollow ache in his stomach. "Trust me on this," Jason insisted. "The recipe for the batter is a closely guarded secret. It's crafted by one of the locals. Victoria guards it with her life, and locals and tourists alike line up down the block. The batter is, well, you'll see. It's superb." A short while later, a basket piled high with golden brown fillets of halibut and a mound of crispy fries was placed in front of Bret and Sulu. The aroma alone was intoxicating, a perfect harmony of savory fish and rich, fried batter. He took a bite, the delicate, flaky halibut encased in a crust of almost impossible lightness and crunch. It was, without a doubt, the best fish and chips he had ever tasted. "Wow," Sulu managed, her mouth full. "Jason, you weren't kidding. This is incredible." Jason grinned, a look of pure, unadulterated satisfaction on his face. "Told you guys. Welcome to Haines." Chapter 9, The Majesty of Chilkoot Lake. The next morning, a thick blanket of fog clung to the town, muffling the world in a soft, ethereal silence. But as Bret, Sulu, and Jason drove out of Haines, the rising sun began to burn through the mist, revealing a landscape of breathtaking beauty. The drive to Chilkoot Lake was a journey into the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, a winding road that hugged the coastline, offering tantalizing glimpses of the turquoise waters of the Lynn Canal. The mountains, their peaks still dusted with snow, rose like ancient sentinels on either side of the valley. Waterfalls fed by the melting glaciers cascaded down the sheer rock faces, their spray creating miniature rainbows in the morning light. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. It was a scene of such raw, untamed majesty that Bret found himself at a loss for words. Sulu was in her element. Their guide for the day, a big man named Shane, with a quiet confidence and a deep love for the land, was waiting for them at the boat launch. He greeted them with a nod and a smile, his eyes twinkling with the promise of adventure. He gave Jason a big clap on the back and said he happy to have him join them for the day. They loaded their gear into the boat and set off across the glassy surface of the lake. The only sound the gentle hum of the motor and the occasional cry of a bald eagle soaring overhead. "We'll bait up with some salmon eggs," Shane said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to blend with the natural sounds of the lake. "The dollies can't resist them." As they prepared their lines, a movement on the western shore caught Shane's eye. He cut the engine and, in the sudden silence, pointed towards a clearing in the trees. "Look there," he whispered, a sense of reverence in his voice. "A mother and her cub." Bret and Sulu watched, mesmerized, as a large brown bear and her small, playful cub foraged for berries at the edge of the forest. The mother was a magnificent creature, her thick fur a patchwork of brown and gold, her movements slow and deliberate. The cub, a bundle of boundless energy, tumbled and played, a tiny, furry shadow of its mother. Just as the bears ambled back into the woods, Bret's line went taut. The reel screamed as the fish, a powerful, unseen force, fought against the line. The next few minutes were a blur of adrenaline and excitement, a primal struggle between man and nature. Finally, with a surge of triumph, Bret reeled in his catch, a beautiful 20-inch Dolly Varden, its silver scales shimmering in the sunlight, its sides adorned with a constellation of crimson spots. Chapter 10. A Carver's Hands. Shane guided the boat to a secluded beach on the far side of the lake, the sand and pebbles a mosaic of muted colors. With the practiced ease of a man who had done this 1,000 times, he built a small fire, its flames a cheerful dance of orange and gold against the backdrop of the towering mountains. He cleaned the Dolly Varden with a few deft strokes of his knife, then pan-fried the fillets in a cast-iron skillet with a generous knob of butter. The aroma of the cooking fish, mingled with the smoky scent of the fire and the clean, crisp air of the wilderness, was a feast for the senses. They ate the fish straight from the pan, its delicate, sweet flesh a testament to the freshness of their catch. It was a meal of simple, profound perfection, a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness. Returning to Haines was like stepping back in time. The town, with its collection of brightly colored wooden buildings and its slow, unhurried pace, had a quaint, old-world charm that was both endearing and captivating. The streets were lined with art galleries and small independent shops, each one a treasure trove of local craftsmanship. Jason led Bret to a small, unassuming workshop tucked away on a side street. The air inside was thick with the scent of cedar and silver, a testament to the art that was created within its walls. A man with a gentle smile and hands that seemed to hold a lifetime of stories greeted them. He was a carver, a master of the ancient art of Tlingit silver carving. He showed Bret his work, intricate designs of eagles and ravens, bears and salmon, each one a masterpiece of form and detail. He picked up a silver bracelet, its surface a blank canvas, and with a small, sharp tool began to carve. With each stroke, a feather, a beak, an eye emerged from the silver, the eagle taking flight under his skilled and steady hand. Bret watched, captivated, as the carver transformed a simple piece of metal into a work of art, a story in silver, a piece of the wild, untamed spirit of Alaska. That night, as Bret got ready for bed with the anticipation of flying out the next morning, he knew without a doubt that his memories of Alaska would stay with him for a very, very long time. And the journey was still not over. Anchorage in the Matanuska Valley awaits.
Thank you for listening to The Creative Globe. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment below, and stay tuned for part 2. Whether you're a maker, an artist at heart, or simply someone who loves great storytelling, The Creative Globe offers adventures that inspire, delight, and expand your imagination. Listen, explore, create. Only on The Creative Globe.